Machiavelli. Ton accent est terrible, Rafi says. I am aware. Encore, she commands, and the sim starts over. I try, I really do, but halfway through the exercise, my tongue gets tangled. The nice man in the air screen looks confused. He's wearing a beret, and the Paris Hoverdrome sits behind him. Because this simulation is designed for littlies. Bored by my failure, Rafi jumps in to finish the exercise, effortlessly, flawlessly, too quickly to help me. The man in the beret is happy again. Je l'ai détesté. My sister learns languages all day, every day. Then she points at something with 2 fingers. The Serrano in her ear whispers the French word for it. 3 fingers for German. She has human tutors in both tongues to learn native gestures and expressions so she won't look like some random taught by a machine. Of course she's better than me at this. All that time I was learning how to fight. Rafi was learning how to be witty and worldly and wise. She waves her hand in disgust, and the air screen fades. Her temper has been flaring since the meeting with our father. I can't believe you've forgotten, Frey. Rafi taught me second-hand French when we were littlies, so I could make small talk in receiving lines without making her look foolish. But my irregular verbs didn't have to be correct for that. Irregular verbs are bogus. No one's going to test me, Rafi. I bet the Palafoxes don't even know you speak French. They'll know everything about me. Remember our trip to Monterey? She waves a hand and the air screen pops back on. Rafi on a newsfeed, smiling, posing with children in school uniforms in a hovering garden of snow. She looks confident and charming, not like someone murdering the local grammar. My memories of that trip aren't about school kids. I hid in our private suite while my sister and father met with famous people. Then I took her place in front of polite crowds wearing vat-grown furs over body armor, sniper bait in the snow. Traveling isn't much fun for me, just as much hiding, a lot less space. I flop back on my bed. So it's your fault for showing off? It's your fault for telling him you wanted to go. What I say doesn't matter. I stare at Rafi, daring her to deny it. She looks away. Fine, it's his fault. If people trusted him, the Palafoxes wouldn't need a hostage. I can only shrug. That's just the way it is, the way he is. And the brave part of me that spoke up in front of our father really wants to do this. Rafi doesn't understand. She gets to charm people every day, making sure the citizens of Shrev love as well as fear us. But all my years of training have only been relevant for 2 minutes and 4 seconds, the time it took me to save her life. I need to do this, Rafi. Her answer is a whisper. To help him? He doesn't even see you. I turn away, stung again. These are things that she never says out loud. I want to feel useful, she sighs. You don't hate him as much as I do. This is an old accusation, but it's easier for Rafi to hate our father. He recognizes her existence. I won't be gone forever. 2 months to secure the ruins, Donna says. Secure the ruins? If you want to fool the Palafoxes, at least stop talking like a military advisor. Rafi goes to the window to glare down at the garden. Why people are fighting over rusty garbage is beyond me. Everyone needs metal. We can't go back to digging holes in the ground. Because when the Rusties did, they almost destroyed the world, she recites. Maybe the pretty regime had the right idea. Excuse me. Goodness. If everyone was still a bubblehead, there wouldn't be all this fighting. I laugh at this, because she's probably kidding. The pretty regime ended just before Rafi and I were born. Back then, everyone had an operation when they turned 16. It made you beautiful, but also had a secret purpose. It changed the way you thought. Pretties never questioned authority, always consumed their fair share of resources and no more. Cities used only the power generated by their solar footprint and recycled every scrap of metal. The rusty ruins were left alone, a strategic reserve so that humanity would never have to strip mine the earth again. But then a girl called Tally Youngblood became the first rebel. She brought the pretty regime down, and suddenly everyone had to think for themselves. It was called the Mind Reign. All those bubbleheads waking up at once. All those cities hungry and ready to expand. Freedom has a way of destroying things. People like our fathers seized power in the chaos. They began to build new structures, whole new cities, starting a race for metal. Now the ruins aren't just reminders of the rusty's excesses. They're invitations to start it all again. Tally may be missing, but there are still rebels out there who think the ruins should be left alone. You'd hate being a bubblehead, I argue. They had brain damage. Raffi shrugs. But they were happy all the time. They didn't have to worry about getting shot at. They didn't have wars. They were too dumb to have wars. She shakes her head. Repartee like that won't impress your hosts. I'll just be quiet. They can't make me be witty. You think wit is your problem? Raffi starts counting on her fingers. You don't know which designs everyone's wearing. You don't know the latest scandals. Who doesn't get invited to parties anymore, or why. You've never even had to change the subject in an awkward conversation. I stand up to look out the window of our room, my hands twitching. I love you, little sister, Raffi says softly, but you're not normal. Instead of clothes and music, you talk about escape routes and improvised weapons, and you eat like a barbarian. She said all this before, that growing up as a body double made me different, but always fondly because I wasn't like her rich, bratty friends. The way she says it now just makes me feel lonely. The thing is, I could smile like Raffi, move like her, mimic her expressions, read a speech from an ice cream with her pauses and inflections. We even hoverboard with the same stance. But I don't know people like she does. She can talk to anyone, dignitaries, soldiers, randoms in a receiving line, with perfect ease. She has 100 friends I've never even really met. I just memorized their faces so I know who to wave to on the dance floor. She has a whole life I've only seen slivers of, like I'm spying on a party through a keyhole. Maybe that's why I want to go to Victoria, to have my own party for once. I stick out my lower lip. I'll just pout the whole time and they'll never know the difference. 2 months is your average sulk. Raffi's resting sulk face is my masterpiece, but she doesn't even crack a smile. You have to be the perfect guest, Frey. It's a disaster for both families if anyone figures out you're a hostage. Who'd believe it? I mean, has anyone ever done this before? Not for about 700 years, which you'd know if you'd read Machiavelli. Her voice goes softer. But this is Dad we're talking about. Do you think maybe he... She hesitates, then whispers the magic words. Sensei Noriko. We go to the bathroom and turn on all the taps, loud and hot, steaming the room up in case of stray spy dust. We wait there silently, watching as the mirror fogs. Sensei Noriko was Raffi's etiquette tutor. She taught my sister all the subtle refinements. I never needed to know how to eat properly, how to use a fan, how to sit at a tea ceremony. She didn't know about me. Then, when we were 9, Raffi declared that my curtsying needed some serious work, so I pretended to be my sister for one lesson. Noriko had an amazing eye for movement and knew immediately that something was wrong with me. She was about to call Raffi's head tutor, which would have only made things worse, so I admitted who I was, what I was. Someone must have been watching because Sensei Noriko never came to teach again. Raffi and I were 12 before we ever said aloud what probably happened to her. Since then, the words Sensei Noriko reminded us that our secrets are dangerous. Once the steam is thick, Raffi leans close and whispers, "What if he planned this way back when we were born, hiding you this whole time in case he ever needed to guarantee a deal?" A shudder goes through me. On the news feed outside our city, people always wonder if our father plans everything or just makes it up as he goes along. Nobody can predict his next move because he does things no one else would. Like this hostage exchange, like me. But Rafi can't be right. It's because of our brother, I said softly. You know that. She looks away into the steam. Before we were born, when the mind rain was spilling across the world, our father was just another politician. But even back then, some people already thought he was dangerous. Our brother, Sinan, was only 7 years old. Someone they never found out who kidnapped him, trying to force father to resign his council seat. When he refused, no one ever saw Sinan again. So he raised me as a body double, a last defense against the people who hate this family. That's exactly what I mean, Rafi said. What if Dad's setting up the same situation again? His child in someone else's hands, so they think they can control him. Except they can't, and this time he can't lose. I stare at her. He can't lose? He can lose me. Sending a hostage wasn't his idea, I hiss. The Palafoxes insisted on it. Rafi raises an eyebrow. It's one expression of hers I've never been able to master. Wary and wise, she leans forward. And who told you that, little sister? She whispers in my ear.